At the dawn of the 14th century, as the sun's first rays kissed the rugged Anatolian landscape, Anatolia was a fractured land, a mosaic of competing interests and fading loyalties. Once the heart of Byzantium, a beacon of civilization and power, now it was a patchwork of fading empires and ambitious warlords, each vying for control of the shattered remains. The Byzantine Empire, already battered and weakened by the devastating Fourth Crusade, was a mere shadow of its former self, its glory days relegated to distant memory. Its authority was crumbling at the edges, its once impregnable defenses now showing the wear and tear of constant conflict. Into this chaos surged waves of Turkic tribes, fierce and determined, driven westward by the relentless Mongol expansion, each tribe led by their own ambitious bey, a warrior chieftain hungry for land and power. These beys carved out small principalities from the ruins of the old order, establishing their own domains amidst the turmoil. These beyliks fought each other with savage intensity, as much as they fought the beleaguered Byzantines, constantly vying for territory and resources. This constant warfare turned the land into a brutal frontier, a place of constant danger and uncertainty. The old order was dying, its institutions crumbling and its leaders discredited. And a new one was waiting to be born, gestating in the chaos and violence of the age. Byzantine fortresses, once symbols of unyielding power, now stood isolated and vulnerable, islands of fading authority in a sea of change. Their garrisons were demoralized and underpaid, stretched thin and struggling to maintain control. Local Greek Christians lived in a state of constant uncertainty, their lives hanging in the balance. They were caught between their traditional loyalty to a fading empire and the harsh reality of new warlords appearing at their gates, demanding tribute and allegiance. Among the many beyliks vying for power, one in particular seemed insignificant, almost invisible. This small principality was nestled in Bithynia, a region strategically located near the last remaining Byzantine strongholds. It was led by a man named Osman, a name that would soon echo through the ages. To the great emperors and powerful khans of the time, Osman was a nobody, an inconsequential figure lost in the grand sweep of history. He was seen as a mere raider on the fringes of civilization, a nuisance rather than a threat. But history has a way of turning nobodies into legends, of elevating the obscure to positions of unimaginable power. In this crucible of chaos and opportunity, Osman was not just passively surviving the storm, he was actively adapting and evolving. He was watching the shifting political landscape, learning from the mistakes of others, and carefully planning his next move. He saw the inherent weakness of his enemies, the cracks in their armor, the vulnerabilities in their defenses. And he recognized the untapped potential of his own people, their resilience, their loyalty, and their unwavering faith. The air was thick with the winds of change, carrying with them the seeds of both destruction and renewal. And Osman, with a steady hand and a clear vision, was ready to seize that opportunity and forge his own destiny. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the world was about to witness the rise of a new power, an empire that would reshape the course of history. Osman Ghazi was a child of the frontier, a product of the harsh realities and boundless opportunities that defined the edges of empires. Born into a world of constant warfare and shifting allegiances, where survival depended on strength and cunning, the landscape was a tapestry woven with conflict. His father, Ertugrul, had led their Kai tribe into Anatolia, seeking new lands and opportunities amidst the chaos. But with the Seljuks shattered, their power waning, Osman was his own master, free to forge his own destiny in a land ripe for the taking. He was no palace prince. He knew the sting of the wind and the grit of the earth. His authority came not from birthright, but from the respect of his warriors and his reputation for bravery, strategic thinking, and unwavering justice. Osman was a visionary among raiders, a leader who saw beyond the immediate spoils of war, seeing not just plunder, but the chance to build and rule, to establish a lasting legacy in a land of shifting sands. He attracted followers, Ghazis, adventurers, and outcasts, men hungry for glory and a place to belong, offering them not just loot, but a cause, a shared vision of a new order rising from the ashes of the old. Osman began transforming his band of nomads into a disciplined force, instilling in them the values of loyalty, obedience, and martial prowess. Learning the value of agriculture, trade, and administration, understanding that true power lay not just in conquest, but in building a stable and prosperous society. He realized that to conquer cities, to truly control the land, he needed patience and strategy, siegecraft and control of the countryside, understanding that starving a city was often more effective than storming its walls. His reputation grew with every victory, solidifying his image as a divinely favored leader. And stories like The Dream of Osman, a tale of a tree sprouting from his loins to encompass the world, cast him as a man of destiny, chosen for greatness. No longer just a raider, content with fleeting gains. He was the founder of a dynasty, the architect of a future empire. His gaze turned to İznik, a strategic and symbolic target. The Jewel of Bithynia, a prize worth fighting for. Osman's genius was adaptability, his ability to learn and evolve in the face of ever-changing circumstances. He learned from enemies and allies alike, absorbing their strengths and exploiting their weaknesses. He built a community bound by loyalty and ambition, a society where merit was rewarded and all contributed to the common good. The fragmented lands of Byzantium became his opportunity, a fractured empire ripe for conquest. Osman was ready to challenge the old order, to stake his claim on the future. The seeds of empire had been sown, and the world would soon witness the rise of the Ottomans. İznik, ancient Nicaea, was more than just a city. It was a living testament to the ebb and flow of civilizations. It stood as a symbol of enduring history and formidable power, a jewel in the landscape of Bithynia. Once the revered site of the First Council of Nicaea, a pivotal moment in Christian history, and later a Byzantine capital in exile, a refuge for emperors and a bastion of their fading glory, its very name resonated with echoes of emperors, theologians, and countless lives shaped by its destiny. To possess İznik was to claim not just land, but legitimacy, a connection to a glorious past. The city was a formidable fortress, a bulwark against invaders, encircled by imposing double Roman walls, a testament to ancient engineering and military strategy, and naturally protected by the vast expanse of Lake Ascania, a shimmering barrier against assault. Its defenses were not merely stone and water, but a legacy of resilience, making it a prize worth fighting for. Its people, the proud heirs of a thousand-year civilization, were as steadfast as the walls that sheltered them. İznik was more than just a city. It was a beacon of imperial authority, radiating power and influence, a thriving center of trade and vibrant culture, where merchants and artisans mingled, and a last bastion of Byzantium in chaos, a symbol of hope amidst a crumbling empire. For Osman, gazing upon its walls, İznik was more than just a target. It was an obsession, the key to unlocking the riches of Bithynia and paving the road to the ultimate prize, Constantinople. Capturing it would represent not only a military victory, but a propaganda triumph, a statement to the world, transforming his fledgling state from a mere frontier outpost to a serious power, a force to be reckoned with. The city's strategic location controlled the main roads, arteries of commerce and communication, and provided crucial access to the Sea of Marmara, opening up trade routes and naval possibilities. For the Byzantines, defending İznik was not just about holding a city. It was a fight for their very world and their cultural identity. For Osman, it was the gateway to a new empire, a stepping stone to a future of Ottoman dominance. The stage was meticulously set for a siege, a clash of civilizations that would irrevocably change the course of history. İznik was far more than just a target on a map. It was the ultimate prize, the conquest that would define a new era and reshape the balance of power. The impending struggle for the city would test the mettle of both sides, pushing them to their absolute limits in a battle for survival and supremacy. Osman knew a direct assault on İznik's walls was futile. His cavalry excelled in open battle, not sieges. Instead, he chose patience, isolating the city by conquering the surrounding countryside. Osman's warriors seized villages, ambushed patrols, and cut off supply routes, turning İznik into an island in hostile territory. Blockhouses and watchtowers sprang up, intercepting every caravan and threatening every farmer. The once thriving region was strangled into silence. The Byzantine response was slow and weak. The emperor was distracted, and resources stretched thin. Local governors were left to fend for themselves as Osman's grip tightened. The people of İznik watched helplessly as their world shrank and hope faded. For Osman's men, this was a new kind of warfare, one of discipline and patience. They learned to garrison and hold territory, patrolling day and night. The psychological pressure mounted. The siege had not yet begun in earnest, but the city was already suffocating. Osman was winning not just the land, but the narrative. The empire's weakness was on full display. With the countryside under control, Osman tightened the blockade around İznik. This was no grand siege, just relentless pressure cutting off all but the lake route for supplies. Inside, food dwindled, prices soared, and anxiety grew. Citizens watched the horizon for a relief army that never came. Osman's tactics aimed to break the city's spirit: sudden attacks, probing raids, and constant vigilance. The defenders, led by a capable governor, rationed supplies and mounted daring sallies, refusing to surrender. It became a contest of endurance: who would break first, the hungry defenders or the patient besiegers. The silence outside the walls was more terrifying than battle. Every day, the city's world shrank further. The psychological war was as fierce as any clash of arms. İznik's fate hung in the balance. Both sides dug in, waiting for the other to falter. The siege became a test of willpower. İznik's ancient walls became the city's last hope and prison. Within, families clung to routine as despair crept in. Hope faded with each day of isolation. Rumors swirled, of Osman's cruelty but also his justice, blurring fear with faint hope. The besiegers too struggled with boredom and hardship, their discipline tested by the long blockade. Osman kept morale high, sharing hardships and reminding his men of the prize. Beneath the walls, dramas unfolded, messengers caught, families debating escape, young warriors facing fear. The siege was not just strategy, it was thousands of personal stories of survival. Both sides endured, waiting for a decisive turn. The stalemate broke when the Byzantines mustered a relief force. One last gamble to save İznik. Osman faced a choice: risk being trapped or confront the enemy in open battle. He left a small force to maintain the siege and marched to meet the Byzantines at Defiance. On July 27, 1302, Osman's cavalry outmaneuvered the heavily armored Byzantine troops, using hit-and-run tactics to devastating effect. The Byzantine army was routed. Their general retreated in defeat. News of the loss shattered İznik's last hope. The defenders, watching for rescue, received only news of disaster. The psychological blow was crushing. The will to resist collapsed. The city's fate was sealed. Osman's victory at Defiance marked a turning point. The road to İznik, an empire, was open. The legend of Osman grew. With the relief army defeated, İznik was utterly isolated. Starvation loomed. The city's leaders chose negotiation over destruction. Osman, shrewd and pragmatic, offered generous terms, safe passage for those who wished to leave, protection and freedom of worship for those who stayed. The gates opened in 1302. Osman's warriors entered as disciplined occupiers, not conquerors. The transition was peaceful. The city's infrastructure and life were preserved. The great church became a mosque, symbolizing the new order, but daily life continued. Osman's victory was as much political as military. His reputation for justice encouraged other cities to surrender. İznik became his capital, a base for administration and future conquests. The fall of İznik sent shockwaves through Byzantium. A new power had arrived. The Ottoman state had taken its first great step. The dream of empire was becoming reality. The world would never be the same. İznik's fall was foundational, the first true capital of the Ottoman state. Here, Osman and his son Orhan built the institutions of empire, blending Turkic, Islamic, and Byzantine traditions. The Ottomans shifted from nomadic raiders to settled rulers, learning the art of governance. İznik's capture gave them a strategic foothold in Anatolia, controlling routes to Constantinople and Europe. The city's fall exposed Byzantine weakness and Ottoman momentum. Today, İznik's walls stand as silent witnesses to this turning point. The siege marked the beginning of an empire that would shape history. The dream of Osman had become a world-changing reality.